Hello, ladies and gentlemen, brother and sister, listen to me carefully. Thank you for gathering today. I come before you not as someone who has all the answers, but as someone who, like you, has often stood in the silence of a question. What does it mean to feel? To feel not just with the skin, not just with the senses, but with the heart. To feel the cry of another person, the warmth of hope, the weight of sorrow, the whisper of God in the stillness. I will teach you how to feel it, not with textbooks, not with intellect alone, but with presence, with humility, with courage. In a world overflowing with information, we are starving for communion, for connection, for something that doesn't just pass through our screens or our schedules, but that passes through our hearts. And this begins not with doing, but with feeling, truly feeling. Feeling is not weakness. It is strength at its most vulnerable. It is what makes us human. It is how we reflect the image of God. There is a passage in a worn little book I once read. The heart has its reasons, which reason knows nothing of. Blaise Pascal, Pensées p. 78. Yes, the heart knows what the mind cannot always explain. To feel is to walk into the house of another's suffering and not be afraid to sit in it. It is to look at the brokenness of someone's life and not rush to fix it, but to be there, to be present. That is what love does. Love doesn't always solve. It stays. When you see someone crying in a pew, don't look away. Don't judge. Don't assume. Sit closer, if only in silence, because the Holy Spirit might be speaking in the language of tears. And if you're too quick to silence them, you may miss the voice of God. To feel is also to remember. To remember that once you too were lost, that once someone showed you mercy, that once you were carried when you could not walk. And in remembering, you begin to understand that we are not meant to walk alone. There's a story told of a priest who visited a prison. He looked into the eyes of a man who had done great wrong, and instead of condemnation, he felt sorrow. Not pity, sorrow. He saw a lost son, and in that moment he said, "I see not what you have done, but what has been done to you." That's how you learn to feel it. You stop asking, "What's wrong with this person?" And you begin to ask, "What has this person been through?" That is compassion. Compassion is not a relationship between the healer and the wounded. It is a covenant between equals. Henry Nouwen, The Wounded Healer, p. 56. I beg you, don't run away from pain. Don't fear it. Don't cover it with distraction, entertainment, or performance. Feel it, let it pierce you, let it soften you, because sometimes God breaks our hearts just wide enough so grace can enter. And when you are full of joy, feel that too, laugh like a child, dance without shame. Gratitude is the music of heaven playing inside your ribs, but don't keep it to yourself. Share your joy. Joy is only real when it is given away. I once saw a woman in the street holding a baby. She had nothing. Her clothes were torn, her shoes worn through, yet she smiled like she owned the sky. And when I asked her, "What gives you such peace?" she answered, "He is mine. That is enough." Oh, what a lesson! To feel that kind of contentment, you don't need riches. You need presence. You need to see what is already in your arms. To feel deeply is to live fully. When we numb pain, we also numb joy. We become cold not just to suffering, but to beauty. And this world, God's creation, is aching to be felt. The breeze, the music of birds, the laughter of strangers, the sacred silence between two hearts. We do not think ourselves into new ways of living. We live ourselves into new ways of thinking. Richard Rohr, Everything Belongs, p. 27. Go and visit the sick. Hold the hand of someone who has no one. Don't bring answers, bring your presence. Listen to the elderly even when their stories repeat. They are teaching you how to feel history, how to touch the echo of life. I met a boy who lost his father. He asked me, where did he go? I had no answer worthy of his grief, but I held him, and together we wept. That is when I learned, sometimes the best theology is a tear shared. When Jesus wept at Lazarus's tomb, he knew he would raise him. Still he wept. Why? Because feeling is not a distraction from power, it is part of it. We are not punished for our sins, but by our sins. Elif Shafak, The 40 Rules of Love, p. 133. So too, we are not saved by avoiding pain, but by allowing it to be transformed. The heart that feels becomes the heart that heals, and you, yes, you, have that gift inside you, so I will teach you to feel it. Start by being still, turn off the noise, let the silence stretch, feel the breath in your lungs. It is not yours, you are borrowing it. That too is grace. Then look at someone. Really look. Behind the face is a soul. Behind the soul is a story, and behind the story is God. Let yourself be moved. Let yourself be broken. Let yourself be lifted. Because when you feel it, the ache, the awe, the grace, you will discover something no book can teach and no doctrine can contain, that you are alive, that you are loved, that you are never alone. And in feeling that, you will teach the world to feel again. And when you begin to feel again, you will see differently. The beggar on the street will no longer be part of the scenery. You'll notice his eyes, the way he tucks his hands into his coat, the quiet hope in his silence. You'll begin to understand that poverty is not just about money. It's about being unseen, and your eyes, if filled with mercy, will become a blessing. You won't pass by, you'll pause. You won't pretend not to hear, you'll kneel. Feeling requires slowness, but the world rewards speed. So we run, we rush, we multitask our way through sacred moments, but the soul cannot be rushed. You cannot feel if you're always escaping the present. Sit down, breathe, look up, let the world touch you again, not through screens, but through skin. Through soul. There is an old man who sits in the back of the chapel each morning. He comes before dawn and leaves after the last candle burns low. He never speaks, just sits. One day someone asked him, "What do you do all that time?" He smiled and said, "He looks at me and I look at him." That is what it means to feel it. That exchange of glances between creator and creature. Not loud, not flashy, but real, so very real. The soul is healed by being with children. Fyodor Dostoevsky, The Idiot, p. 245. Let yourself be near those who still feel everything. The child who cries at a broken toy or laughs at a silly sound is not weak. They are alive. Let them teach you. Let their openness rub off on your hardened heart. And don't fear your own tears. We live in a culture that treats emotion like a flaw, but even Jesus wept. Even the saints fell to the floor and begged for mercy. Holiness is not perfection. It is softness. It is allowing yourself to be touched by what touches God. Sometimes people say, "My heart is too heavy. I feel too much." But that's not a burden. It's a gift. You're carrying a piece of the world's sorrow, and maybe that is how healing begins. You don't have to fix it. Just carry it. Carry it with love. You must feel not only for others, but also for yourself. Don't become a stranger to your own soul. When was the last time you asked yourself, "How am I really doing?" And not the polished version. Not the mask you wear, but the truth. Let the walls fall. Let the silence speak. There is a holiness in honest self-examination. There is a grace in being real. Someone once said to me, "I pray, but I don't feel anything." I told them, keep praying, not to feel, but to remain open. Feeling is not always a thunderclap. Sometimes it is a slow sunrise. Sometimes what feels like emptiness is actually preparation, God making room for something deeper. So stay open, even in the silence, even in the stillness. If the only prayer you ever say is thank you, that will be enough. Meister Eckhart, Sermons, p. 121. Gratitude is not a shallow emotion. It is a form of feeling that touches eternity. It doesn't ignore pain, it sees through it. It finds beauty even in the ashes. It whispers yes, even when surrounded by no, and do not be afraid of anger. Even that, when purified, is a form of feeling. It tells you that something matters, that justice is real, that something is worth fighting for. Let it move you to action, not hatred. Let it burn away indifference, not compassion. So many people are numb, not because they want to be, but because they've been hurt, disappointed, betrayed, so they shut the doors of the heart. But shutting out pain also shuts out light. If this is you, hear this: you are not beyond repair. Your heart may feel cold, but embers still burn beneath. And I promise you, if you let the breath of grace near, they will glow again. I met a man once who had lost everything, his job, his family, even his faith. And yet, when he spoke, there was a depth in his eyes that stunned me. I thought I had reached the bottom, he said, but then I discovered God was already there waiting. He learned to feel again, not on the mountaintop, but in the valley. That is often where we learn most, in suffering. Not because pain is good, but because it strips away the illusions, and what is left is something unshakable, something real. We spend so much of our lives trying to feel good, but the deeper call is to feel truth. And sometimes truth hurts before it heals. The world will try to teach you to be efficient, to be productive, to climb and conquer. But rarely will it teach you to be tender. That is why this lesson matters so deeply. Because tenderness is what will save us. A tender soul doesn't destroy. It listens. It mends. It holds. It forgives. A father once told me his teenage son had stopped speaking to him. Years of silence. But one day the boy came home, found his father in the garden, and simply stood beside him. Said nothing, just stood, and they dug together in the dirt for hours. When I asked the father what that moment meant, he said, "I think we were speaking without words." That's feeling. That's grace. Let us be people who speak like that. Not always with noise, but with presence, with patience, with closeness. Because in the end, it's not the words people remember. It's how you made them feel. People will forget what you said, forget what you did, but never forget how you made them feel. You don't need to be perfect to be a vessel of feeling, just willing, just open, just honest. Let your wounds become windows. Let your fear become prayer. Let your hands be used not to build walls, but to build bridges. Let your life become a response, a living echo of the pain and beauty around you. Wake up in the morning and ask, whose burden can I help lift today? Whose silence can I enter, not to fix, but simply to honor? If each of us lived with that question at the center, the world would shift. Not through grand revolutions, but through small acts of holy tenderness. I once visited a hospice where a nurse held the hand of a dying woman for hours without letting go. She didn't speak much, just held her. When I asked why she did it, she said, because she must not feel alone at the threshold. That is what it means to feel, to sense the weight of a moment so sacred. You give it your whole self. Feeling, real feeling, is costly. It means carrying burdens that are not your own. It means letting the grief of a stranger become yours for a time. It means your peace will sometimes be interrupted by another's storm. But oh, what a holy interruption it is. We are not meant to build lives that are protected, walled off, isolated in perfection. We are meant to build lives that are given away, given to the widow who needs company, given to the addict who needs mercy, given to the refugee who needs a name spoken with dignity. A student once asked me, "What should I do with all this pain I see in the world?" I told her, "Don't look away, let it teach you, let it break your heart in the right places, because some things should break our hearts. That's how the Spirit gets in. There are cracks in everything. That's how the light gets in." Leonard Cohen, Selected Poems 1956-1968, p. 214. The light does not come through perfection. It comes through fracture, through loss, through vulnerability. That's why we must stop hiding our scars. They are the places where grace has passed through. They are sacred. When you begin to feel in this way, something shifts, not just in you, but in the people around you. You become a mirror, and others see themselves more clearly through your gaze. Not a gaze of judgment, but of understanding. You become a place of safety, a place where truth can breathe, and it is not always dramatic. Often it is in the unnoticed places, the quiet kitchen table, the hospital hallway, the back row of the church, the seat beside a stranger on the bus. These are the sanctuaries where feeling is born and reborn, again and again. Once, during a cold winter night, a woman left a bowl of soup outside her apartment for a homeless man who slept near the steps. She left no note, said no words, but when he found it, his eyes filled. Because someone had seen him, and that was enough. Feeling starts there, not in the speech, not in the spotlight, but in seeing. To feel, you must begin to see again, not with the eyes of the world, trained to scan and assess, but with the eyes of the heart, which linger, which notice. You'll begin to see the sorrow behind the smile, the hope behind the trembling voice, the holiness in the most unlikely of places. And when you feel it, when you really feel it, you won't be able to stay neutral. Feeling always leads to response, not reaction, but response, measured, loving, just, because when you feel the pain of another, indifference becomes impossible. And when you feel the joy of another, envy begins to dissolve. And when you feel the sacredness of life itself, you begin to live differently. You begin to live gratefully, reverently. There was a boy I met who could not speak. He had lived through horrors no child should ever see. And yet, when he looked at you, it felt as if his eyes were praying. He felt everything, and in that silence he taught me more than any sermon. So many of our wounds come not from being unloved, but from being unfelt. From crying out and hearing no echo, from telling our story and receiving no embrace. If we could learn to feel one another, not just to hear, but to enter in, then healing would no longer be rare. You will be tempted to harden your heart. Life will offer you 1,000 reasons to go numb. But please don't take them. Don't trade your heart for armor. It is better to feel too much than to never feel at all. The world needs your tenderness more than your certainty. There will be times when your feeling leads you into discomfort, into conflict, into sacrifice. Let it. That's when it matters most. That's when you become the hands of compassion, the voice of truth, the heart of Christ walking in flesh and blood. And if you ever wonder whether it's making a difference, remember this. The seed you plant through feeling, through kindness, through presence, may not bloom in your lifetime, but it will bloom somewhere. In someone. Love never dies. It only multiplies. And I urge you, Don't wait for the world to feel first. Don't wait for approval. Begin with yourself. Choose to feel today. Choose to see the person in front of you. Choose to let your life speak not just through words, but through the quiet language of presence, attention, and love. Because when you choose to feel, you become a witness, not just to events, but to the soul beneath them. You begin to sense the sacred weight of ordinary moments. You start to understand that no gesture of love, however small, is wasted, that no suffering, however hidden, is ignored by heaven. I remember a woman who lit a candle each day for her husband who had passed years ago. She never spoke of it, never made a display, but that small flame became her way of feeling, of remembering, of loving still. Every day she told the world, he mattered, he matters. And isn't that what we all want? To know that we still matter even when we're gone. To feel is to remember that love does not disappear. It changes form, but it remains. And it is that enduring love that sustains us through the worst storms. When we are no longer able to change a situation, we are challenged to change ourselves. Viktor Frankl, Man's Search for Meaning, p. 112. Feeling doesn't mean you can fix everything. It means you are willing to be changed by what you encounter. It means the suffering of the world doesn't just touch your ears. It touches your heart, and once your heart has been touched, you cannot go back. You cannot pretend not to know. You cannot unfeel. You can only move forward with a deeper sense of responsibility. Not a heavy burden, but a holy invitation to walk with others, to cry with them, to laugh with them, to be for them the voice that says, "You are not invisible, you are not forgotten. I feel what you feel, and I will not turn away." Feeling is not about knowing all the answers. It's about choosing to stay near the question, to stand beside the one who is breaking and say, "I'm here. I may not understand, but I will not abandon you." That is the heartbeat of real compassion. And sometimes you must feel for those who do not even know how to feel for themselves. For the angry, the bitter, the lost. For the ones whose hearts have gone numb from too many betrayals. They may not show it, but deep inside, they're crying out for someone to hold the part of them they can no longer carry. That someone can be you. Do not underestimate the power of your presence. A simple glance, a hand on a shoulder, a moment of silence where someone expected rejection and instead found mercy. These are the miracles we are all capable of, and you must learn to feel even when you are tired, especially when you are tired. Because love that is given when it is difficult, that is the kind that transforms the world. We have been told that strength means not crying, that leadership means staying composed, but the deepest kind of strength is not found in the absence of tears, but in the willingness to let them fall. A mother once brought her daughter to me. The girl had been silent for months, not speaking, not playing, just watching the world from behind a veil of grief. I knelt beside her and whispered, "It's okay to hurt." Her lips trembled. One tear rolled down, and though she said nothing, I knew she had heard me. That moment was enough, because it reminded me that every heart, no matter how closed, holds a door that feeling can open. We live in a culture that praises control, but the Spirit often works where we are most undone, where we feel overwhelmed or raw or deeply unsure. That is where God comes closest, because He doesn't need us to be perfect. He needs us to be real. And sometimes being real means being undone. It means letting your carefully built walls fall apart. It means saying, "I can't do this alone," and allowing grace to meet you there. Only the broken heart can know the infinite. Rabindranath Tagore, Stray Birds, p. 92. Yes, it is through our brokenness that we become open to the infinite love that has been waiting all along. Not to fix us, but to dwell with us. And so we keep feeling. We keep opening ourselves to the world's beauty and sorrow. We keep saying yes to the messiness of real love, because in the end the goal is not to feel better. The goal is to feel more truly. There is no quick path to this. It cannot be taught in theory. It must be lived, felt, breathed, in every choice you make, in how you speak, in how you touch, in how you listen. You are either opening the heart or closing it. So choose the way of openness. Choose the way that feels harder but leads to life. Let yourself be interrupted. Let yourself be inconvenienced by someone else's need. Let yourself feel the ache of injustice, the joy of forgiveness, the slow burning light of joy that outlasts the pain. Let yourself feel the music of life, not only the high notes but the trembling low ones too. For that is where empathy is born, and that is where God most often speaks, not in thunder, but in the whisper of a heart wide open. When you walk through this world with your heart awake, you will see things others miss. The tired cashier who forced a smile, the child in the corner of the playground, kicking dust, waiting for someone to notice. The elderly man who wears the same coat every day, not because he prefers it, but because it's the only one he has. These are the people who need you, not just your help, but your feeling, your recognition. The greatest disease in the West today is not TB or leprosy. It is being unwanted, unloved, and uncared for. Mother Teresa, A Simple Path, p. 41. When we begin to feel, not just react or perform, we become healers. Quiet ones, not always with answers, but always with presence. And presence is what people crave in the silence of their suffering. Sometimes, feeling means sitting with someone and not speaking at all. Just breathing with them, letting their pain exist without rushing to fill the space with solutions. Because not all wounds need closure. Some just need company. There is so much we will never fix. There are losses we will never fully understand. But there is no pain that cannot be shared, no darkness that cannot be softened by a single light. And you, beloved, you are that light. You are the one who can enter the hospital room and bring peace. The one who can write the letter no one expected. The one who can touch a stranger's life with a word that says, "You matter. I see you." But first, you must let yourself be moved, and you will feel afraid. Because feeling requires vulnerability. It means your heart might break, and it will. But broken hearts are holy hearts. Out of suffering have emerged the strongest souls. The most massive characters are seared with scars. Khalil Gibran, the prophet, p. 88. These scars are not signs of weakness. They are reminders that you dared to care, that you did not turn away, that you were human enough to bleed for another. So I ask you, with all the love in my soul, do not shut down. Do not become numb. This world needs people who feel deeply, who love wildly, who risk looking foolish for the sake of compassion. Let others build empires. You build sanctuaries, sacred places where the hurting are held, the lost are welcomed, and no one is rushed through their healing. We do not need more experts. We need more feelers, people who are not ashamed of tenderness, who are fluent in the language of tears and laughter, who do not fear silence but know how to dwell in it. Become such a person, and the world around you will begin to heal, not through your perfection, but through your presence. Feel the world in your bones. Let its joys dance in your chest. Let its aches settle in your breath. And when the moment comes to act, and it will, you will know what to do, because love that is felt always finds a way, and that, dear soul, is how you begin to teach others to feel it too, not by force, but by example. not by telling them what it means to care, but by showing them what it looks like, by being the living, breathing evidence that it is possible to live wide open, that it is holy to hurt, sacred to listen, divine to be undone by beauty or grief or kindness. So keep going, keep feeling. Let your heart stretch even when it aches. Let it stretch so wide that the whole world can fit inside. And so I leave you with this: do not be afraid to feel. Do not be afraid of the ache that comes with love, or the tears that rise when truth meets your soul. These are not signs of weakness. They are the signs that your heart is alive, that you have not shut down, that you still believe in what is good and what is possible. Let your feeling become your offering. Let your tenderness become your strength. Let your compassion be louder than the noise of indifference. Because this world doesn't need more noise, it needs depth. It needs people who feel, and through that feeling, heal. Go now, not just with words, but with the courage to live this truth, that to feel is to love, and to love is to live fully. And if you teach nothing else in your lifetime, teach this, by how you live, by how you forgive, by how you stay tender even in a hardened world. Teach them how to feel it. Thanks for watching.